So the question is, how do you feel about the latest MSF research on quantifying rough sleeping or homelessness, which you are, of course, an expert in. You have done a lot of research on this as well.
Yeah, that is an interesting study, probably the most tiring I've had to do in my 10 years as a researcher. And the full story of what happened behind the scenes of that study can be found in the sequel to The Art of Advocacy. So please get a copy of that. But I mean, I do think it's very important. And we first started doing this study mainly because it's done as a matter of routine in many countries to count the number of rough sleepers. But we didn't even have the number in Singapore. We didn't know. How can you make policy if you don't know how many people you need to serve? How? I didn't understand. And of course, part of it was I just wanted to know, right? Every researcher is a bit of a busybody, right? You just want to know. So I just wanted to know. It's important to know, and I from anecdotes and so on, right? And from kind of sensing this domain, I very quickly learned that it was a sensitive area to study. So there's a reason why the first study on homelessness only happened in 2019. That was not the first year that people were homeless. There is a reason why it happened that way, right? I mean there are research-based reasons. It's just very complex. And then there are boring reasons like the way universities are designed these days, but nobody wants to hear that. And Walid already knows. And then there are reasons of political sensitivity, right? It's always a bit of a risky study to study an issue which politicians may, or policymakers may feel is a critique of the home ownership system. It's almost as if every homeless person you spot is an indictment of our model of home ownership. Of course it isn't, right? Nobody thinks that way. Nobody sees one homeless person and says, aha, proof, HDB failed. Nobody thinks that, right? But when you're nervous, and we can't control that. So we did do that study. I felt it was important to do. It was extremely difficult to do, but to jump forward to the conclusion, I'm quite happy with the outcome, right? Which is from a place where we weren't able to talk about homelessness properly. And to be honest, there were many times during the process I wasn't sure the study would be completed. I really wasn't sure. Until the day we launched the report, I wasn't sure that something might happen or not. I just didn't know, right? But it did get done. And just a few months ago, the government published a report from their first count of homelessness. Of course, I have my views about how they did it, but I don't want to look ungracious. So I would say that I think it's an important achievement for advocacy to move from a place where we cannot talk about it to them having to acknowledge it, and then to them replicating the study and committing to doing it. So let's all watch how they do it, right? But I think I want to thank all the volunteers like yourselves who did it. This was a study that an individual could not have done. That was a huge accomplishment on all your parts. Yeah.
So I think you answered it. The study wouldn't have happened without your prior study.
Yeah, I think I can say that with a straight face. Yeah, I think it's a bit like toothpaste, you know. That once it's out of the tube, you can't really put it back. So when you reach a point of the discussion, you can no longer go back to. There was a long time where we were trapped in semantics, definitional squabbles. Really homeless? Do they own a flat? Maybe they might own a flat. Maybe they know somebody who might own a flat. It was always a really homeless question. I even was asked that if we were doing the count, how can you be sure they didn't just fall asleep on a bench in a park? Maybe they had a good night out with friends and were drunk. What if, like really homeless? We were trapped in that for such a long time. But I think we got past that, and on hindsight, I'm so glad we did. We published in late 2019, November 2019, I think. And then of course, a few months later, what happened? The world stopped, right? And then homelessness exploded because public spaces were out of bounds. But at that point, journalists no longer had to worry about, are they really homeless? Can we really publish these stories? It was full steam. The shelters were at capacity, journalists helped. They made an open call for businesses and so on to open their premises to homeless people. I'm glad we got past that meaningless, unconstructive squabble so that when the crisis hit, we could do the work that really matters.